Hi, I'm Bernie van Niekerk, and I look forward to speaking to you today about artificial intelligence and its role for procurement and supply chain professionals. My introduction, I work with Commerce Edge. I'm the CEO of its international business, and I'm also the editor of Smart Procurement. Almost every day, there's some new AI technology being introduced throughout the world. The uses for AI is exploding, and definitely in the procurement and supply chain field, there are so many use cases which are coming up every day. We're going to be in this session obviously focusing narrowly on procurement and the supply chain, but it's just incredible how many uses are being developed every day for this technology, and it's such an amazing and useful set of inventions, and we live in a very exciting time to be able to have these tools available to us. So even though there are numerous AIs available, and as I mentioned, more and more being developed every day, in this presentation we're going to focus on two of them. We're going to focus on an AI technology called large language models. And there are really two examples which a lot of you might already know of. The one is called ChatGPT, and that's going to be the essence of our discussion today, but it's very similar product to ChatGPT. ChatGPT is a product called Bard. ChatGPT comes from OpenAI and is supported by Microsoft, and Bard is supported by Google. And they are each trying to take the functionality to the next level as fast as possible. So in this session, we'll focus more on large language models as an AI tool, because that's, I think, where we can make a really big, fast impact in the supply chain and procurement environment. And then the second one is we're going to be talking about the use of AI for product data cleansing and enrichment, where there's been a massive leapfrog in the technology that now allows you to rapidly clear and cleanse and enrich product data. What is ChatGPT? Well, firstly, I must just mention that this little visual, cute little robot that's here, that is not ChatGPT. It's an example of another kind of AI, which is used to create graphic images. And but the similarity between that and ChatGPT is it is also a generative AI called Midjourney, and one of our graphic designers used Midjourney here to create this little robot, and you won't find this robot anywhere on the web. It is something completely new that the AI created with the instruction of our graphic designer. The actual logo for ChatGPT is this little ball in the corner here, and as we go through this presentation, whenever we refer to ChatGPT, just remember that's the logo associated with it. So what is ChatGPT? In simple words, imagine having a conversation with a computer program that you can understand, and the computer can understand your questions and provide detailed answers and engage in a discussion just like a human being. That is what ChatGPT can do, and I'm going to show you some pretty interesting stuff now on how it can do it. Just so that you know, ChatGPT has a formal definition of a formal category within which this artificial intelligence falls into, and ChatGPT is an example of a large language model. Now, a large language model is a type of artificial intelligence that is trained on vast amounts of text data to understand and generate human-like text. It learns patterns, grammar, and even has knowledge on some of the data that it's been trained on. It makes it capable of engaging conversations and providing responses based on the input it receives. In essence, it predicts the next word in a conversation situation. So as a procurement or supply chain professional, there's the question of what can ChatGPT or a large language model do for you personally, and then there is what can it do for your organization. And in this section, we're going to look at what can it do for you. And the thing here to think about is if you had a super efficient executive assistant, that is kind of the role that ChatGPT can play for you. It's fast, it's efficient, it's super eloquent in many different languages. It's literate, its grammar is fine. So, you know, if you're one of those Frikkie Delports who works in, somewhere in some mind somewhere and English is not your forte, don't worry. This is like having a executive assistant that will, type things out for you in the Queen's English. It's polite to a fault. It can actually do some research for you. And you will be, for those of you who don't know ChatGPT yet, I think you will be astounded at what it can do. And even for those of you who know ChatGPT, even if you use it a bit, you'll be interested to know that there is so much more that it can probably do than what you already know about. Okay, quite importantly is what it can't do for you. So if you do our online course, you'll see one of the questions at the end is they test you on the fact that you need to be able to own ChatGPT. It's not something which you could just hand over and ChatGPT, can do things for you. There's a lot of things on the internet right now about AI will be able to do our jobs, etc. And yes, in some areas it's true, but right now, something like ChatGPT cannot think for you. But what it can do is it can take away the slog work so that you could spend your time thinking, and then once you've determined what you want to do and then use the right prompts to get ChatGPT to help you, it can be highly efficient. But it cannot think for you. You need to own ChatGPT. It can't do your job. It can do aspects of your job. And it probably, again, release you to be able to do more value-adding stuff. It can automate certain repetitive tasks, but right now, generative AI, such as ChatGPT, hasn't reached the level of what they call general AI. Now, general AI that's kind of the thing that everybody thinks one day that this will be able to, act as a super intelligence. Right now, that's not where ChatGPT is at. It's extremely, it's mind-boggling in terms of what it can do, but it is not there to take over your cognitive function. It can't make decisions. It can suggest decisions. You can ask it for brainstorming, for ideas in order to help you make decisions. It cannot always be relied 100% on for accuracy when it does research or in analytics for you. You still need to go and verify for yourself that what ChatGPT comes up with is relevant. In some cases, you'll find that the context within which ChatGPT was trained is not the same as your context, and therefore that needs to be checked. And it also can't manage. But the idea that you own ChatGPT and that you use it to enable your work is really the right kind of way to look at it. All right, so let's meet ChatGPT. In this first section, we're going to look at ChatGPT and you, and how it can enable your professional life to become more efficient so that you could be more effective. Right, so let's get to know ChatGPT. The details on how to get to the site, etc., will be communicated with you. And we're just going to start to get to know what ChatGPT is about. Some of you have already used it, but for those of you who haven't, we're just going to start with some simple stuff. And I'm going to say, hi, I'm Bernie. And the large language model comes back and says, nice to meet you. How can I assist you today? I'm saying, well, I am a procurement professional. So it's now understanding where I'm coming from. It says that I've likely got some experience in sourcing and purchasing and managing supply chain for goods and services. And how can I help you with procurement-related questions or concerns? So I'm now going to ask, how can you help me? Right, so it comes up with a couple of things here. It says that can provide information and guidance. It can provide you with information on best practices, industry standards, regulations, insights on strategic sourcing, contract negotiation, supply management, cost optimization. Remember, this is not a procurement-specific item. This thing has been trained on on data throughout the world, but look how specific it is, right? And it says I can offer guidance based on the knowledge that I've been trained on. Furthermore, I can answer specific questions for you. Maybe need clarification on concepts, procurement policies, procedures. Feel free to ask. I'll do my best to provide you sourcing and supplier recommendations, etc. And then, so there's a whole bunch of things there. And you can. This is actually a different answer from the last time I asked it. You can perhaps say, is there anything else you can help with? And it'll probably come up with a whole bunch of additional procurement related items. Procurement process optimization, risk management, contract management. Specifically interesting, I can assist you with contract drafting, with review and analysis. I can provide information on key contract terms, negotiation strategies, and so on and so forth. So it's making some bold claims. Cost management, so I can offer suggestions and techniques for cost reduction, cost analysis, cost control, and so on. So yeah, I think ChatGPT is something that, as a procurement professional, I'd like to spend some more time with, and I'm assuming that you would like to as well. So let's start with let's get going then with some questions which kind of pertains to what things that could be helpful on a personal level, using ChatGPT, because it's really good when it comes to correspondence and that kind of those kind of things. So I'm going to say I've recently been appointed as a senior buyer at a mining company, but the company does not have a job description for me. I've even spelled job description wrong. It'll automatically fix that. And I say, well, can you create a job description? Certain. Here's a sample job description. So firstly, it fixed my spelling up earlier. And I made this massive spelling mistake over there. And it started with a sample job description. So it's a senior buyer, the department, and then location. What's really great about ChatGPT, it often gets the format right. So it doesn't just provide you with a bunch of information. It actually gives it to you in the form of a template in the way that people would normally use it. And then there's the job summary. There's the key responsibilities, which will include procurement strategies, supplier management, contract negotiation, procurement process, stakeholder collaboration, risk management, continuous improvement, qualifications and experience required, and so on. Right. So can I say, maybe let me say as well, define the KPIs for my job. My job. Well, there's a job now. To realize that, and it's come up with a bunch of interesting KPIs, etc. All right. So now I have now, come up with a job description. Yeah, you can always add to this job description. You can go back and say, well, not only am I supposed to do this, but also add. You could say, I want to edit this now. Add BEE, supplier management, to the earlier job description. And again, it's not so fussy about spelling. If you don't get your spelling 100% right, it's clever enough to actually fix it. So certainly, here's the updated version of the job description. Now, remember, I said to it BE supplier management, and it came back saying here's an updated job description that includes BE broad-based Black economic development supplier management. Now, that's very interesting because I did not tell it what BE supplier management was. It knew, and it found it out of its knowledge base. And let's go back there. Additionally, this role will focus on BE supplier management, so it's brought that into it. What are the key responsibilities? Now let's look at BE supply management. It came up with BE supply management with the terms of identify, evaluate, and select BE compliant suppliers based on quality, cost, delivery, and service criteria, actively promote and engage long-term partnerships, etc., etc. Now, again, if you remember earlier on, I said it's really important that you must own ChatGPT. So the idea is not to now just take this and pass it on. The idea is to take this as a framework and to add to that your specific um, uh, context and your specific thinking and so forth. But as a start, it actually saved quite a lot of time. I think this is the kind of thing would normally take an hour or 2 hours to prepare. But now I'm in a situation I need to send this to my new boss, and I want to communicate with my boss in a very simple way. So I'm going to say, rewrite this job description so that a 10-year-old can understand it. Because I want to make sure my boss understands this thing that I'm sending to him. And here is a simplified version. Okay. And it's written it in much simpler language. So look for ways to save money and find better ways to get what we need. Finding good suppliers, making contracts. And so what I find very useful about this, and it's obviously just an example of how it took relatively complex terms, because if you compare this to the earlier one, you will see that there's a lot more words, then there's a lot more high level words. But when you go back to the one which we asked it to do it in a different level of language, then you'll see there's less text, and it's really simple to understand. Now, okay, obviously, I don't think it's not really about dumbing it down so your boss can understand it. But what's useful here, what I found is if I get a complex contract. So let's say the other day I got a contract from a bank, and it was just lawyer and legalese all over the place. And I copied the information into ChatGPT. And by the way, ChatGPT is excellent when it comes to understanding legal stuff. And you would then chuck it in there, and it can come back, and it can actually give you some really, really simple, in much simpler language, making it a lot easier to understand. So that's quite an interesting thing, especially the ability to write it in simpler language. Right, so now hopefully my boss can understand my job description. And my first job is a supplier of ours has put forward a 15% increase. And I need to write a letter to the supplier saying that I don't think so. We can only afford 7.5%. So let's type that in. Respond to a supplier. So respond to a supplier who put forward a 15% increase, and state we can only accept inflation, which is at 6%. Again, it compensates for my spelling mistakes. Dear supplier name, thank you for submitting your proposal. After carefully reviewing your proposed 15 increase, we'd like to discuss the pricing further. Our current budgetary constraints, market conditions allow us to consider increase in line with inflation, which is currently at this. We value our relationship with the company. However, we kindly request your understanding of our position. Now, that saved at least half an hour there, and it's probably more polite and tactful and in better English than I could do myself. I want to mention, by the way, that for the supplier, although we can't give him a further increase, I want to say also mention that we will increase our volumes by 10%. By 10%. Yeah. Again, it doesn't worry about the spelling. And So this, and then when it deals with the volume increase, it says that we can increase our volumes by 10%. So firstly, it's quite clever. It says, well, we are unable to accommodate a 15% increase, but we are pleased to inform you that we're planning to increase our volumes by 10%. So now it's starting to kind of work on the psychological aspects of the supplier on the other side. Given this increase in volume, which we believe is reasonable to consider a pricing adjustment of 6%, etc., etc. So that's the kind of stuff that ChatGPT is really good with. Correspondence. For example, okay, ask your new boss for a raise. For a raise. Here comes a letter. Really nicely thought out. It will. My great enthusiasm, my dedication. I've greatly enjoyed it. Over the past period, I've consistently demonstrated value, high quality results, and so on and so forth. And I'm not going to go into this in any more detail because we need to, in this little section. But that's, it's a pretty decent letter there. And again, you can dumb it down if you need to. Look at this. I've conducted research on industry standards and salary ranges for similar positions. And based on my findings, I believe a salary adjustment would be appropriate. I'm committed to continuing. It's not a bad letter, man. And could you do better? Well, I don't know. So anyway, so this is I'm trying to give you a bit of a taste of what ChatGPT can do for you as a procurement professional in terms of your correspondence, your life, and managing it with your new executive assistant. Now that we've looked at how ChatGPT could enable your own life and assist you in your professional capacity, let's start looking at the procurement cycle. And obviously, there are many uses in many different business cycles. And this particular example, we're going to look at the procurement cycle from the moment that there is a need inside the business until it's sourced and delivered and processed and all of that. And let's see to what extent this tool could enable this process. All right, so now we're looking at the procurement processes and the different stages at which ChatGPT are able to help us with. Okay, the previous session I kind of typed the stuff in myself because I wanted you to see that it's, it's not canned or anything, that, this is just a human being like you, busy typing stuff in, making mistakes and seeing what happens. But I've decided to speed things up a bit on this section. So now we're saying when we look at the procurement cycle, obviously we need to start off with the demand. We need to start off with the end user requirements. And in this case, we've got, you've been tasked to source laptop computers for the mining company that you work for. Before you go into the market, create a survey to end users, asking them 15 questions each about what is important to them when it comes to laptops. So that's often a step that people would do if you need to go out or you need to put items on contract. Obviously, you want to know what the previous year's spends was, but you also want to have an understanding of what's coming in the future. So a good way to do that is to create a survey. And so there it comes up with a whole bunch of survey questions. Some of them are really quite useful. How much memory you use, how important is battery life for you, etc., etc. Okay, and we've, some valid questions. You might not use all of these questions, but I think as 15 questions that you can choose from, I think that's probably pretty good. I think I'm going to say also add 5 questions. I don't know if we can be able to come up with 5 on how much you will be spending this year on laptops. And then it'll add some additional questions, right? What's your estimated budget range? How many laptops do you anticipate getting? Would you consider refurbished laptops, etc.? So, a very, very, very useful way to understand. Before we're going to go into this laptop contract, we've sent this out to the business. We've got all this data. It's possible with Bard, for example, if you do this, it'll automatically. Okay, I'm saying it will, but I understand it to be able to automatically send that out to a Google a spreadsheet from which you can take it into Google Forms and you can just distribute it and get your data automatically from that. So a really, really simple and easy way to understand what the demand is like. So we also have an idea of now what the spend is going to be. And so now we're saying, okay, let's see. I mean, it doesn't have so much information, but now we can say create an RFI for laptop suppliers, right? Let's see what comes up with. Obviously, you might have to fine tune this one. Create an RFI for laptop procurement. It knows it's a request for information, laptop supplier evaluation. We kindly request you instruction for suppliers. Give us your company name, years of established. It's already come up with a whole bunch of things. Which what I found about ChatGPT, what's great is that sometimes it just mentions stuff that I. It's not that I couldn't come up with it, but I would have forgotten, about it. And then sometimes it comes up with something that I didn't even think of. So for those of you who sourced laptops before, I mean, you will understand to what extent this is, a good RFI. In some commodities, it's really important to understand your quality assurance processes and certifications that ensure the reliability, provide on any industry recognized certifications that your laptops comply with, provide a price list, and so on and so forth. And, really useful. I don't have the time to go into this into detail. We'll work through some proper examples on the one-day course. But, pretty good. So, a little disclaimer at the bottom. It's for information gathering purposes only, etc. It doesn't guarantee future business. I mean, we've all seen that before, but, ChatGPT figured it out. Right, so we've got the RFI. We might want to analyze the viability of certain suppliers. Now, what I've done here is I've looked at, I actually took Tesla's balance sheet for the last few years, and I'm just copying that online now, which you can't see. But this is just the numbers that I got from Tesla's balance sheet, and it just shows you for each year what each balance sheet item was. And I could say, okay, well, it provides. Okay, so now giving me a summary of the data. I actually wanted to ask the question about it. I wanted to say, pretend you are a senior buyer. Draw conclusions from this data regarding the financial viability of this supplier. Good, and it's going to give me a little report there, right? It's going to come up and says, well, the company's assets have been increasing, which in Tesla's case is the case. The growth in current assets is good. Adequate financial stability. So it doesn't give you some of the details, and it tells you what else you would need to look for, and it tells you if you want to do a comprehensive evaluation. When we want to also look at some additional financial statements like income statements, cash flow, and so forth. And this is really just for illustration purposes, but it very, very quickly looked at the data from 2018 to 2022, and it's given us some good observations then. I mean, I've been following Tesla for a while, and the reality is this is pretty much what it says here. It will also give you the tools. If you want to say, well, help me, how can I assess a supplier's financial viability? So if you don't know how to do this, it's also going to give you some tips on that, which is really useful. Talking about certain ratios and metrics, industry comparison, really important. Understand the debt obligations, understand cash flow management, profitability, growth, all of those things which Commerce Edge is glad to let you know we have a course, by the way, that deals with all of those things, and it's coming up one of these days. You're more than welcome to attend that. But yeah, I mean, very, very useful stuff. And again, this might be a 90% match. You probably want to add some couple of things there. There might be some context for your company that one wants to add to that, but it can make a difference. You can actually do some other spend analysis. For example, I have another spreadsheet here, which I'm just going to copy some data from. You won't be able to see it. but it's some data of spend with suppliers. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy the line items in, and I'm going to be adding it into ChatGPT, and there's the line items. Okay, and based on the data, it's a record of purchase orders and related information rather than financial data related to supplier. Yeah, so this was exactly what it is. It was transactional data, and I'm going to say uh, um, um, analyze how much we spent with each supplier and their BEE and their BE. I think it's called BE rating or BE levels. All right. So there it showed the following suppliers were mentioned, and it's actually giving you a language-based description. But now I'm going to say, well, summarize this in a table. And there it starts giving us a little bit of a summary there. So it's pretty good on the analysis side, provided that you don't give it too much data. But I mean, I just gave it some raw data. Yeah, I just literally copied the transactions in there, and as you can see, it's just raw transactional data, and it came back and it quickly summarized it like that. So it can do some basic analysis for you. It can look for opportunities for cost reduction. It could compare prices between different suppliers and so on and so forth. So also very, very useful. Finally, I want to say create a sample contract for sourcing laptops, and it's going to come up with a template, your company's letterhead, there's a formal agreement, a scope of work, and so on and so forth. And it's going to do that fairly well. And then you're going to say, well, deal with things like penalties and so on and so forth. And but even what it governing law and jurisdiction, you obviously need to say the jurisdiction is South Africa. So it's going to amend that. South Africa. So it's now going to amend the contract to say what the jurisdiction is. And then you can start playing with this thing, and you can start saying, well, let's put on penalty clauses. Let's do all kinds of things like that, So yeah, very, very useful way. We'll do this in much more detail later on. And then I'm basically we're sort of running out of time, so I'm just going to do one more thing, and I'm going to say provide 10 savings ideas when buying laptops, right? And now I'm just asking for 10, and let's see what it comes up with and whether those are good ideas or not. So I find ChatGPT very good for brainstorming. Sometimes in a day, you've got your mind is so focused on these things that you kind of don't always look to the bigger picture, whereas this is just a computer. It's just giving the information that's available there. So yeah, right. What are we looking at? Bulk purchases, competitive bidding, supply negotiations, long-term contracts. Okay, these are kind of boring. Refurbished or open box laptops. That's an interesting idea. Alternative brands, warranty and maintenance plan. All right. So I'll say provide 10 more ideas. I don't like your first. I don't like your first 10. Provide 10 more. Keep an eye on promotional sales, end-of-life models, training programs, warranty support options, open source software, employee purchase programs. Okay, now we're getting into the gist of it. All right, so yeah, man, that's a kind of an illustration of some of the things that ChatGPT can do within the purchasing cycle. Now, the kind of things it's really, really good at as well is legal. And if you ask it to develop clauses, or you ask it, for example, take a supplier's contract and you put into ChatGPT and you ask it to identify risks for you as a buyer on that contract, is very good at doing that. It's very good at translating it into simple language and those kind of things. So yeah, I hope I've illustrated that there's I probably illustrated like 1% of the opportunities that you can get in the procurement cycle. I mean, we haven't talked about strategic sourcing. We haven't talked about market analysis, where you can ask it to find suppliers, comparing suppliers' balance sheets, comparing suppliers' financial capability. developing project plans, whatever. There's just so many things. So yeah, but that's it for now on this section. Yeah, so we've just looked at the examples now of elements of the procurement process that something like ChatGPT, large language models, can do. And it's also maybe worth mentioning at this stage that some of the other language models that are out there, such as Google Bard, it's got some really interesting things that can also, for example, help you to auto-create presentations, to send the information directly to the Excel sheet. The race is on between Microsoft and Google to make this as useful as possible, as fast as possible. Now, let's look at another concept which I'm just going to talk about. I'm not going to demonstrate in ChatGPT, but in any business, there's a lot of repetitive queries. Now, one of the leading practices, for any company, it's actually not even it's just a basic standard operation, is that you need to have, as a procurement function, you need to have a supplier booklet, and that's a place where your suppliers can get all the information that they need from you. And it plays many different roles. It even brands your company to your suppliers. But it's a place where the suppliers can get answers and they can get them fast. Now, when you're dealing as a procurement function, say, of 10 people, and your company has 10,000 suppliers, you can't be in a situation where those 10,000 suppliers contact the procurement function all the time, every time they want to know something. And that is why people create a supplier booklet and possibly a website, etc. But now you can take this to the next level if you integrate something like ChatGPT with chatbot. It can learn the specific information about your company and the information that is relevant to your suppliers. And then what it can do, it can use the natural language that you've seen demonstrated in this presentation, and it can utilize that to answer supplier queries. Now, a lot of companies do this on the customer side. I know on the insurance side, you will have an example where one of the insurance companies has trained chatbot on and ChatGPT on their specific data based on all the queries that they got. I don't know if any one of you has ever gone onto, recently one of these telecom sites where they've got a bot there that supposed to help you, but I found those things to be not very useful because they don't seem to understand what I'm looking for. Whereas if you integrate this ChatGPT technology into a self-service environment such as that, then you can actually really be useful to the parties out there. So a really great one. I'm not going to go into too much detail now. We'll deal with it some more on the one-day program, is the ability to self-service, where suppliers can service themselves for information and they only come to you when they need something that is not within that context. And it can obviously apply to internal users. It can to all kinds of stakeholders. Procurement functions only have a limited number of staff, and you actually sitting in between a large number of end users and a large number of suppliers, and sometimes the amount of queries can just be phenomenal. Now, if you set this up correctly, you could find that you will have a very high customer service ratio, and at the same time, not be as busy. So, yeah, the bot uses ChatGPT language capabilities to respond to stakeholders on your specific data. That's a really cool application. Another very, very exciting area of AI in the procurement space and supply chain space as well is product data cleansing and enrichment. And anybody who's worked with procurement data will know that that is often one of the most frustrating and difficult obstacles to overcome, and actually something which really hinders you in being able to achieve supply chain performance. And this is something where, because of this, if you think of this large language model capability and its ability to learn, and you match that with machine learning around a specific data set, which is the language of products and services, then you could use that same capability to cleanse your data and enrich it. Right, so let's look at a very interesting case study on how AI can really quickly clean product data, enrich it, and create it create data in such a way that anybody could quickly get to the essence of what this product or service is about that's being procured. Now, here's an example of a bearing, and if you're working in corporate, then you'll know that there's often these people, they've been working at the company for 30 years and they know all the kind of shortcuts, towards product descriptions, etc. And but often you might know the product short description, which, for example, in this case was this bearing #3312. But that actually underneath it is a whole pyramid of data, right? Which could, for example, include the UNSPC classification. It could have other classifications attached to that. It's got the short description, the long description, then you've got the attributes. And the problem with trying to sort this out is that people enter information like this into the system, and there isn't a common way of actually understanding what everything is. Now, in this particular example, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, basically what happens is that because the AI has been doing all this work in the background, learning from the company's data, somebody just types in bearing #3112 and automatically all of this additional information comes up, and there's no duplication, and it's a really fantastic way. Because if you think about it, it's learning. It's a combination of a large language model together with some machine learning, together with obviously a couple of algorithms that are specific in this environment. But something like product data management and enrichment is a very, very good use case for AI. Thank you very much for attending this session. We will shortly be having some questions, and I hope that this was illuminating. For me, it's like something every day. It shows you something new, and I'm sure that some of you in the audience have figured out some stuff that I could learn from, and I look forward to seeing some of you at this one-day practical workshop, which we'll be having in July. It's going to be a lot more use case driven. We're going to focus a lot on how to use prompts in ChatGPT. The one thing, if you really want to master ChatGPT, you need to understand how to use prompts correctly to be able to get to the information that you want. And as part of this session, we'll be having some online learning, which everybody will be getting. Everybody who attends the session will be getting this practical e-learning. It's worth $4.99 on ChatGPT Basics, which we developed in-house, and specifically around the prompt. So what we want to do is, if you do attend this one-day workshop, you need to complete this online learning. It's about 45 minutes, so that when we come into the workshop, we can do it for maximum effect. If you don't want to attend the workshop, you can also get this e-learning. It's only 499 Rand. It's not going to break the bank, and it's really worth it. And you know what? If you're unhappy with it, there's a money back guarantee. So don't worry about it. It's got to be good, otherwise you get your money back. All right, but thank you very much, and I'll gladly take some questions now.